Back to another episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. Unfortunately, there is no face cam just because it does not work as so often. I still don't know why. It might be a bootcamp issue, it might be some whatever issue, but nonetheless, we're going through the science and use of cold exposure for health and performance. OBJ, yeah. So apparently there should be some picture, I guess, I assume, or it stands for something else. I do not really know. But as you can see on the top left hand corner, it is by the hubermanlab.com, which is by Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist as far as I remember, and Stanford professor also for, I think, neuroscience, but I do not really know. I just know that his podcast is super duper amazing. I have mentioned it before multiple times, and I've been talking about it multiple times before. It really is insane. It really is amazing because it gives you really new science-based techniques to deal with a lot of things as, health benefits of cold exposure, learning, hormones, sleep, and so on and so forth. It is amazing. It really is. Safety. I do want to really emphasize on that and read that really clearly. So here we go. Never get into a dangerous body of water. Also, never do deliberately hyperventilate before or during cold water or any water. Immersion. Start slow, warmer, then colder. As cold shock is possible, just as with lifting weights or other forms of exercise, you'll need to find the right temperature for you, yet prioritize safety. Prioritize safety. I do want to really point it out because cold exposure is a really cool thing. I've been using it for, I would actually say 2 years now. Maybe a year. I'm actually not quite sure. But I really enjoy it, I really like it, and I think it is a great tool, and I found it to be pretty useful for myself, for the lifestyle that I'm living, for the way that I just want to live. Period. How cold? This is the most common question I hear, and it makes sense to ask that. However, it is truly impossible to answer, as some people tolerate cold better than others. The key is to aim for a temperature that evokes the thought, this is really cold, and I want to get out. But I can safely stay in. For some people, the temperature might be 60 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas for others it might be 45. So here's the key. The colder the stimulus, water immersion, shower, etc., the shorter amount of time you need to expose yourself to the cold. One study showed significant and prolonged increases in dopamine when people were in cool, 60 degrees Fahrenheit water for about an hour up to their neck, with their head above water. Other studies describe significant increase in epinephrine. I think it's epinephrine from just 20 seconds in very cold water, so 40 degrees. The good news is that as you do deliberate cold exposure more often, you will be more comfortable in the cold at all times and can start to use colder temperatures with more confidence, just like exercise. Yes, what I'm using is cold showers. Back in the days, I've also had cold baths when I felt like, really hurting myself. No, really, how should I say? It's not torturing. It's definitely not nice, but for me, it really had some pretty cool effects. Period. To increase energy and focus. Deliberate cold exposure causes a significant release of epinephrine, aka adrenaline, and norepinephrine, aka noradrenaline, in the brain and body. These neurochemicals make us feel alert and can make us feel agitated, as if we need to move or vocalize during the cold exposure. Cold causes their levels to stay elevated for some time, and their ongoing effect after the exposure is to increase your level of energy and focus, which can be applied to other mental or physical activities. I do want to underline again, there are some episodes kind of deliberately about that, and not necessarily solely, but I have covered it for quite a bit. Using cold exposure for learning, spiking adrenaline after a learning session as soon as possible, really, at least according to Huberman and some studies and whatnot, can decrease the amount of reps that you need to learn something, which is amazing if you think about it. Enhancing your mood. While not true of every stress, cold exposure causes the prolonged release of dopamine. Dopamine is a powerful molecule capable of elevating mood, enhancing focus, attention, goal-directed behavior, etc. Even short bouts of cold exposure can cause a lasting increase in dopamine and sustained elevation of mood, energy, and focus. Listen to episode 39 to learn more about dopamine's role in the body. Yes, something that I am clearly seeing as well. When I'm taking a cold shower, most often before I go to bed, if this is the right thing, if this is just sensical or not, this is up to someone else. I'm just doing it. It's just my way of living. But I always feel really good after it. I feel like, okay, now I can do a bit more work. Now I can do this, now I can do that, now I can whatever. It just gives me a slight edge once again, after a relatively hard day, after a day of actually doing quite a lot of things. It gives me even more energy to do this, that, and the other thing. And I really like it. Or it just makes me feel better about myself, which is also nice. My routine, by the way, is most often, unless I'm in a hurry, having a warm shower, even really hot shower, for actually quite some time. I do actually like showering a lot, which, not that nice, to be honest. I actually do not like it that much, but after a longer hot shower, I take as a cold shower, as cold as my shower possibly can get. Sometimes it's actually not that cold, and it bothers me quite a bit when it is raining and it's cold outside. It tends to be colder, which makes sense because of pipes and whatnot. At least it is the case for my house, my flat, my whatever. So this is what I do. And I really like it. Back in the days, I've been actually doing it for longer periods of time, so 6 minutes in one go. In brackets, my shower at my parents' house was way colder, and I liked it actually way more. But it is what it is. Can't do anything about that. But yeah. Metabolism. In the short term, cold exposure increases metabolism as the body has to burn calories to increase body temperature. The total calories burned from the cold exposure are not that significant. However, the conversion of white fat, which is energy storage, to beige or brown fat, which are highly metabolically active, can be beneficial for allowing people to feel more comfortable in the cold, i.e. cold adaptation, and triggering further and more sustained increases in metabolism. Of course, calories on consumed versus calories out, metabolized, or CICO governs whether you gain, lose, or maintain weight. There is no escaping the laws of thermodynamics. Counting Walch's approach. So there are a few approaches: shivering and the Soberg principle. The Soberg principle, based on deliberate cold researcher Dr. Susanne Soerberg, is to enhance the metabolic effects of cold, force your body to reheat on its own, or end with cold. Also, allowing your body to shiver may enhance metabolic increases from cold. Shivering causes the release of succinate from muscles and further activates brown fat thermogenesis. Physical recovery. Short intervals. Cold water immersion demonstrated positive outcomes for muscle power, perceived recovery, and decreased muscle soreness, which is, by the way, less than 5 minutes, in part due to a reduction in circulating creatine kinases. I didn't know about that. The problem is that cold water immersion, but not cold showers, can limit some of the gains in hypertrophy, strength, or endurance if done in the 4 hours or so after training. It is better to wait 6 to 8 or more hours until after training, or do it before training unless your goal is simply to recover without adaptation. Day or night after cold exposure, your body heats up. Yes, heats up for reasons discussed in the Huberman Lab podcast with Dr. Craig Heller from Stanford. Body temperature increases tends to wake us up, whereas body temperature decreases tends to shift us down towards sleep states. Thus, I suggest using deliberate cold exposure early in the day and not too close to bedtime. Yes, this is why before I pointed out This is what I do, which does not mean that you should be doing it as well. Staying completely still while in cold water allows a thermal layer to surround your body, insulating you from the cold. To be most effective as a resilience training tool, move your limbs while keeping your hands and feet in the water. That will break up the thermal layer and you will thermal and experience the water as much colder than if you stay still or stand still or if you stayed still. So yeah, these are some thoughts on cold exposure, how you could be using it, and more. Gonna see you next time.